Hello. So like I said, I know that it's been longer than 5 days. Sorry about that. Oh well, get over it. Anyways, the long, perpetual story of who I am and why I am the way that I am. So, I guess we would have to go all the way back to a very undecisive birth story. Not exactly that, but it's like that, basically. You see, for the day that I was born, and this was winter time that I was born in, it was like nearly 70 degrees the day that I was born. This doesn't make any sense. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I really don't even know how. But that was the way that it was. And I don't question it. Every other year seems like winter is just that way. It's uncontrollable and undeniable. And I don't really like it. But, it's the way that things are ran, apparently. So what we are basically going to go over this brief video, I'm going to try to keep it brief. It's basically how I got to where I am and the choices that I have made all the way up to this point, basically. So I was adopted with somebody that I absolutely hate and despise and basically believe that he doesn't deserve to be out of prison. It's just that simple. Or jail, for that matter. Which, that's a completely different story that I'm not going to go into at all. But he did a lot of things that are unspeakable. I was homeschooled, so there is that. If I recall correctly, I was homeschooled just about a majority of my life, which is a very pathetic thing to say, that you've been homeschooled your entire life, but that was the case for me. Anyways, going from there, we have this situation where, I was homeschooled my entire life. I was consistently bullied throughout elementary, middle school, high school, military career, start of college, out of college, where I am today. And it's pathetic and it's sad that people can be bullied for that long, even remotely that long. I'm gonna say this much: every relationship that I've had, other than the one that I'm like 100% committed to, mainly because I'm essentially married, in that view. It's a complicated thing, but regardless, every relationship that I had before my wife, basically my first relationship was 7th grade. 7th grade, cheated, ended the relationship. Next relationship I had was I waited 2 years to get into a relationship. So in freshman year of high school, I was 14, going on 15 at the time. So it's whatever. Sophomore year of high school, 15 going on 16, got into another relationship. I'm not going to go into detail with that one, but long story short, cheated on me with one of my brothers, relationship over. And that kept happening a lot. And so, with that very regard, I think the biggest issue is when those type of things happen. You can't really foresee those things happening, I guess, is the issue that you end up coming across. And so, when you come across those issues, it's a matter of, hey, this is like a principal consequence. You'd think that you'd learn by this point in time, but you haven't. And so, we are coming across this issue that is where we now have to decide where this relationship is going to go from there. But I guess I'm getting kind of off track. Next relationship. Let's just say that was perhaps one of my greatest regrets. She was basically just using me to get whatever she wanted, and as an individual who's been in a lot of relationships, but not that many relationships, it's kind of that astronomical opinion of what can I do right and what can I do wrong with a relationship that will literally destroy who I am. Basically, every single relationship that you end up being in, that you end up choosing to be with somebody, if they're not the right person, believe me, they will basically destroy who you are. You could be one of the smartest people on the face of the planet. I don't know you. But it comes down to the opinion of who you are and what you think of yourself. I know for myself, being somebody who's married, there is nothing I wouldn't do in this world to take care of her, to support her, to cherish her, to love her, to basically make her essentially the queen of the world. And I feel like that kind of love is a bit over dramatic in the sense of it, because every time I've ever talked to somebody about how they ended up meeting their wife and whatnot, they've been married for 10, 15 years, and the time that they've been married for, they tell me, we never really got along up until we were married. But, for my wife and I, it was the exact opposite. We got along all the time. And, I understand that every relationship is different in that regard, but it's a matter of perspective that you have to bring into the equation of all relationships. You come into the equation of, okay, is this person really worth my time? Is this person really not worth my time? What is it that I can do to make sure that this relationship lasts? What is it that I have to do to make sure that this relationship doesn't last? How do I make this relationship go farther? And so with myself and my wife, I know when it comes down to it all, we are constantly discussing matters that concern only us. And I feel like that's the best part about a relationship, is to discuss your issues with each other over anything. But backtracking, it wasn't until my junior year, I had one more relationship before being with my wife. And honestly, if it was up to me on choosing relationships, if I'd ever change anything in my life, I'd probably say no, given that all of my relationships have basically led me to where I am right now. It's not the worst situation, but it's not the best situation either. Everyone has their own little critiques that they have. I know for myself, I love my wife. I love her with an extreme passion that is probably beyond anything that I could have ever experienced in my life. But going back to the relationship of my junior year of high school, basically, that was the worst decision of my life. She and I started a relationship. She chose somebody else over me, and then me being the idiot thought she's still in love with me because she's telling me that. She ended up doing things that were clearly not very into me in that regard. And she was like the first person to ever truly use me in that regard, because they basically just used me to get into a relationship with people that I knew, or back into relationships with people that I knew that didn't want to get back into a relationship with her. And so she basically used me to get into relationships with those people. And yeah, that was a very, very fun situation. Uh, in addition to that, basically, the only other individual that I had in middle school that I potentially could have dated was the individual that I dated in my junior year of high school. She was my middle school sweetheart, pretty much. Son of a bitch, I hate fucking flies. But, in that regard, it's just another relationship, another failed relationship, I suppose you could say, in all accuracy. Anyways, that's going off topic again. In all regards, I still view her as a good friend. I wouldn't view her as somebody worth being in a relationship with in that regard, only because I have a wife. And because of where our relationship went. But yeah, I honestly probably wouldn't change a single thing. I mean, maybe some things, but in the regards of choosing my wife, I wouldn't change a single thing of how I got to where I got to and everything. So now we're gonna go on to the seclusion of myself, my wife, in the military. So before my wife and I were married and all that, she ended up being in the military. And she and I both ended up going into the military, which is kind of ironic, because I remember saying, I'm never gonna get married to somebody who's going into the military, and I'm never gonna go into the military. And then, when I was 17, I enlisted into the military. That was the thing. One of my greatest regrets, yet best decisions I had ever had in my life, I'm not gonna lie. I'm about to be 21, so as that retrospective reality kind of kicks in, it's like, okay, well, this is great. I know that I'm skipping a lot of areas here, but it's to kind of backtrack things and kind of discuss the issues on how I got to where I am, which is basically what I'm doing. Is I'm trying to get to the point to where I am right now, and not where I was at that point in time, which wasn't a good thing, which wasn't a good place, but also wasn't a bad place. But yeah, it's all encompassing, really. Excuse me. So next up we have basically the life decisions that I made. Ah, God. So the life decisions that I made were not the best ones, but they weren't the worst ones. The best decision that I believe that I made was taking a job in construction. So I worked in construction from the time that I was 16 all the way up until I left for the military, which was 19. And I'm a vehicle hauler now. So yeah, when it comes down to it all, you really just gotta assess the situations. My life's pathetic, in case you couldn't tell. I know that I'm being a bit melodramatic in this case about my life being pathetic and whatnot, but that's not how I view it. Next up, we have the bullying situation. So when I was growing up, I was a fat kid, I post a lot about it on my Snapchat up until my wife and I met each other, and she doesn't entirely know the situation behind it, because when she met me and when she got to see me for the first time and all of that, she never could tell that I was fat in any regard. And so, when it comes down to it, I was a fat person. I mean, I wasn't dramatically fat. Like some people, when they get fat, they get a fat stomach. With me, if I was to get fat, my entire body would just physically start swelling. I would physically get fat all over instead of just one area, like some people. Um, and again, that's the situation that I was in. Uh, the and going back to the adopted thing, I was adopted into a family with 9 siblings. You can tell that's kind of a bad thing right off the bat. It's 9 siblings. No one ever wants to be a part of a family that big. Believe me, I would know because I'm literally part of that family. I wouldn't say that I hate every single person in there, just one, and that's about it. Some of them I slightly resent, given that they are in better situations than I am. But again, it's where the part of not wanting to be a part of a really big family falls into line. So next up we have the whole relationships part and the people that I decided to be with over who I could have been with. So basically, the relationships that I decided to be in were not the best relationships because they just mentally destroyed me, as well as emotionally, and they caused me a lot of stress, anxiety, and a lot of other mental issues that arose from those relationships. And that's why at the end of every single relationship I decided to take breaks in between each one of those relationships, other than when I met my wife. I met my wife prior to my senior year of high school. Not fully, basically I got her information prior to my senior year of high school, and then basically we started talking near the end of my senior year of high school. So I graduated in March of last year. Yeah, so it's kind of bad that I graduated that late, but I'm going to explain that situation. So the situation behind why I graduated so late is simply because I didn't care. I just didn't care. I legitimately did not care about school in any regard. I was working 2 jobs, trying to get rid of my debt and try and get out of my parents' house instead of having to go through the military. And then I ended up going through the military because I realized that I couldn't get rid of my debt, even if I wanted to, without the military's help and funding. Because I was trying to get into college, I was trying to do all other sorts of things, and I just kept failing. And being a quote-unquote failure in those regards made my life very, very difficult. I had to figure out, well, how am I going to get by with this situation? How am I going to get by with that situation? How am I going to go about this? How am I going to go about that? And that's when everything kind of fell in line within itself. Is I kind of realized that I couldn't do it. And that was, ironically, the same time that my wife and I had started talking. And the whole point behind mine and my wife's relationship is we were talking back and forth just about 9 months straight, and then I asked her to marry me instead of being in a relationship with me, and she ultimately said yes to that, and literally I married her that same day. Now granted, neither one of us were able to be present for that. If you're gonna get married, do marriage by proxy. It's like $700, but at the end of the day, you don't have to have a wedding or anything. Just don't get a wedding. It's very simple and not that difficult. But yeah. In any case, basically, my relationship with my wife continuously built even higher throughout all of that time up to this point. We are actually going on our 1-year anniversary on September 15th of this year. And so with that regard, I probably shouldn't be telling people when my anniversary is, but it's oh well. If she ends up seeing this, I'm probably going to be a dead man which I really hope that she doesn't see this now. I regret all decisions of making this video. And I should have brought that up much earlier, that I'm gonna probably regret making this video now that I'm realizing everything that's going on and everything that I'm saying. But yeah, my life is crap. After I got out of the military, I ended up being homeless, and I ended up having to go live in a homeless shelter. And then I got an apartment, and that apartment only let me stay for so long, and then they asked me to leave, and then I became homeless again. Just recently, I actually got a new apartment, which I'm glad and happy for and about, because, you know, I can finally say for once I actually have better things going on in my life for once. I'm in college finally, and, you know, not finally, you know, I mean, I've been in college before, but the college that I wanted to, you know, I'm finally in it, and, you know, that makes me happier than, you know, I can even express to anyone, with the exception of my wife. My wife makes me happier than school. And, you know, I mean, my intentions are to eventually go back into the military. You know, I mean, the military is granting me permission to come back in, which is great. But, you know, it's a matter of the perspective of the fact that, you know, it's up to the military on whether or not I come back in. And, you know, if the military permits me to come back in, then, you know, I'm going to come back in. But I think that this video is starting to get too long, and I'm taking up too much of probably everyone's time that are watching this video. So yeah, probably going to end it like now.